Sanity. Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. 6 months ago, I got invited to my first ever game of Dungeons & Dragons. It was a one-shot. As a long-time DM for Call of Cthulhu, otherwise known as a Keeper of the Arcane Lore, for those of you who are in the know, sexy and cool, I was excited to sit back, relax, and bully some NPCs as a player. Not only would this be my first time playing Dungeons & Dragons, this would be my first time ever being a player in a role-playing game. I'd been a Call of Cthulhu DM now, at this point around for like 2 years or so. So it had been quite a while, and this was my chance to sort of really, chill the fuck out and stop planning things. Not that I do much planning anyway. This, of course, meant that I had to do what every tabletop role player hates the most. Come up with a character. My first ever Dungeons & Dragons character. Having come from a Call of Cthulhu background, a game all about Lovecraft horror and fraying sanity, I decided to draw on my experience. This is Richie Ryder, a cowboy from regular human Earth who fell for a portal, landed in D&D land, and subsequently lost his fucking mind. Much like many of us. Richie Ryder in many ways looks like your traditional cowboy. He's got a very large cowboy hat, cowboy boots with razor-sharp spurs that he can use on a weapon on the back. He's got a bandolier with sort of a red sash around him and a bright, livid red scar on one side of his face. That means it always looks just a little bit like he's smiling. And I want to say this now, he's not the Joker. I know he has a scar on his face. He's not the Joker. I'm not playing the Joker. Stop saying that. Please. There's something about, you say anyone has a scar and they're like, oh, he's doing the yoker. He's doing yoking. He's yoking. I'm not yoking. I'm being deadly serious. Richie was inspired by Dominic Allen's maniac of a character, Ed Mooney, from Highway of Blood on their podcast, Apocalypse Players. It's my favorite podcast. It's a Call of Cthulhu podcast. They do fantastic work. Please check them out. Upon falling into D&D world, Richie staggered aimlessly, lost in a world that he didn't understand, until one night coming across a band of goblins who were tormenting a baby demon duck that they had summoned accidentally in a mistaken ritual. Richie, feeling instinctively protective, brutally murders all of these goblins, and then takes this wonderful little duck under his wing, lovingly naming him Colin, after his son who he left behind in the real world. Colin looks essentially exactly like Feathers McGraw from Wallace and Gromit, basically like this, minus the hat, because he's not chicken, he's a duck, and instead of sort of his white pupils, if you look in his eyes for long enough, you can see sort of a deep red haze behind them. Yeah, edgy stuff. The two of them now travel the land, picking up odd jobs through the Deliveroo for Adventurers, Venturoo, which is hilarious, just kind of aimlessly wandering the land, with Richie always secretly looking for a way to get home. A fun fact, if you looked at Richie's character sheet, is that he actually speaks Infernal. He doesn't know he speaks Infernal. He thinks he speaks Duck. It hasn't come up yet, and I can't wait for it to do so. Recently in a session, this is jumping ahead a bit, but we had the first time like an open conversation between Colin and Richie. Normally, Colin just kind of goes, meh, and then Richie goes, what he said. They were alone at one point and trying to plan something, and they had a full conversation, just very normal, which was hilarious. And then the other players were like, is that what it's been like the whole time? We're like, the whole time. This is just how they talk. At this point, those of you from the, weebier side of nerd might have clocked something. Oh, you're doing an isekai. For those of you who don't know what an isekai is, it's a anime trope from like a fantasy subgenre where like a regular person in the real world gets generally hit by a truck. I think it's a truck, or maybe a bus, I don't remember. And then they end up in this like weird fantasy land where, they're having to overcome all these different challenges and problems, as they're new to this world. Sounds all good at this point. They do end up being devastatingly horny. Almost always. And there's a whole thing of like, they were like a loser in the real world, now they're in fantasy world and they're really cool and hot and everyone wants to bone them and whatever. It's fucking weird. It's weird stuff. Despite what you may think, I don't really watch anime. I don't really like it. It's not my thing. I'm not that kind of nerd. I've never heard of what an isekai is. I only found out what an isekai was when I was at Meltdown, a gaming bar in North London, and I explained to my friend and DM Phil what my character's backstory was. Here is a reenactment of what happened. A regular human cowboy falls into a portal, lands in D&D world. That's my idea. What do you reckon?
I think it's really cool. Sounds like you're going for like an isekai kind of thing.
What's an isekai?
Oh, you know, like genre of anime where like a normal person gets teleported into a magical world and suddenly, rather than being a massive loser, they're really cool and well established and everyone loves them. You know, kind of like Sword Art Online, or That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, or the hero in a Delph Bride open at a pizza parlor in an abandoned dungeon, or that one time I got reincarnated as Yamcha from Dragon Ball, or the hero becomes the sister of the young villain But yeah, no, I think it's a really cool concept, and I think you've done well doing like an isekai thing. That's a nice idea.
Yeah. You said it's really horny, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Not great. Moving on, Richie Rider was originally a ranger, and this is how I played him for our first one-shot. My primary means of attack were, of course, my 2 guns that we ran as if they were hand crossbows. I also had a hand axe and my sharpened spurs that I could both use as different types of weapons in close melee range. I also chose the feat Tavern Brawler, because Richie's a bit of a scrapper. This basically means that I can use anything as an improvised weapon, and if I successfully make an unarmed or an improvised weapon attack on someone, I get a chance to grapple them. So, you know, Richie, he's ready to get moving. He's ready to start scrapping at any time. Which means like he is a ranged fighter primarily. He uses his guns, but he also has some stuff when you're scrapping. The ability that I chose as a ranger was Favored Foe, meaning that upon hitting a target, I could mark them as my favored foe. So if I hit a goblin, I can mark goblins once per day as my favored foe, meaning I would get an extra d4 of damage whenever I hit one. This is when I learned my first major lesson as a D&D player: combat roleplay. Anytime I got to do my additional d4 damage, we roleplayed that as if it was Colin doing the damage. So, for example, I hit someone for, 4 points of slashing damage. I roll my d4. Colin swoops in, pokes someone's eye out, gets that additional d4. Gruesome stuff. You gotta love it. At one point, I'd hit someone, and then they were pretty low on health. The d4 hit 4 to kill them, and I described Colin flying down their throat, choking them out until they died. I miss Call of Cthulhu. This adds some wonderful, if a bit gruesome, flavor to my character and to combat, and I think really demonstrated to everyone that my character is not just Richie Rider, it's Richie and Colin. You know, an iconic duo like Banjo-Kazooie, Ratchet and Clank, George Bush and Dick Cheney. Truly legends. Our first session was so much fun. The one shot that we'd done was amazing. Phil's a great DM. My friends Guy and Dave, great fun, so good. But what was profoundly clear was just how ineffective Richie was. He was just incredibly average. I think this is something that people raise as an issue with Rangers in general before you can subclass. They just end up being consistent, but a bit consistently boring. In fact, in our first game, which lasted 6 hours, I only managed to shoot one person. One. The whole time. It was the final boss. My gun was literally on the back of his head, and I got to roll advantage. That's the only reason I hit him. Just was fucking mental. I realized that I'd taken my commitment to not being a min-maxing, sweaty, basement-dwelling gamer too far. And in fact, instead of min-maxing, I'd maxed my mins. Now that's just a bar. Ultimately, he was boring. He was a great fun to play, great fun to do the voice, but as an actual gameplay character, he wasn't very exciting and didn't have loads to do. Which, hey, you're playing level 1, you're always, going to have a bit of a rough time. But there wasn't enough there for me. After this session, we took a bit of a break, and we had to embark on our biggest challenge yet. The struggle that all D&D players know far too well. Getting 3 to 6 people in the same room at a regular time. We began playing a campaign. In this break, I decided to, with the agreement and advice from my wonderful Dungeon Master Phil, to rework Richie Rider. Inspired by Zakoyama's character Daisuke from Dimension 20's Cloudwood Ho, I decided to be a gunslinger. Gunslinger is a very popular homebrew class, I believe originating from Critical Role, which is originally was a subclass of fighter, leaning into guns, and then it was spun off by this wonderful user on Reddit, I'll put their name on the screen now, into this amazing helpful graphic as a full class. The subclass that I chose for Gunslinger was Guns Akimbo, meaning that I can make 2 ranged attacks in 1 turn and can use 2 guns. However, in keeping with my commitments in our earlier play sessions, Colin is functionally my second gun. This was a bit of negotiating between me and Phil. I would recommend if you're ever trying to do a bit of homebrew stuff or kind of tweak characters and make changes like this, talking to your DM about it, because rules as written, if Colin was functionally my second gun, he's a straight upgrade, right? He is my second attack that I can make each turn. He's also a sentient being and helps me out a lot, despite not being a familiar, because he's basically his own character. But also, it would mean that I get functioning a second firearm without ever using any ammo to do it, so my resource expenditure goes down, but my damage stays the same. So we had a conversation about how we could try and balance this out, and we decided to go with that Colin is functionally my second gun. I can't make 2 gun attacks in a turn. Colin is only the second attack I can do. And I don't get some of the additional benefits that I could if I was doing a gun attack. So by rules as written, I could essentially spend a resource to do some extra damage, which I can't do with Richie. He always does the base. He doesn't get my additional piercing damage from the gun. As a gunslinger, I get a number of Deadeye points. This is a resource I can spend to do different types of shots and get different benefits. At level 1 and level 2, my only access I have are headshot, leg shot, bird shot, hand shot, body shot. These all have different effects. Birdshot makes something fall out of the sky. Handshot knocks a weapon out of their hand. Headshot does additional damage and can make them incapacitated the next turn if they do really badly on a con save. Body shot, if they fail a strength save, knocks them back a bit. And leg shot, if they fail a con save, I think it is, their movement gets halved. And if they fail by a certain amount, they can't move at all. These are all really, really useful. Most of the time you end up just doing headshots because you just want to kill. And if you ever manage to kill someone with a Deadeye point, as long as they're hostile and a significantly powerful enemy, you get your Deadeye point back. So you're incentivized to try and do as much damage as possible, snipe one thing off, and then you get the Deadeye back and you can keep using it. My original brew of Richie's stats, so your Deadeye points was determined by your wisdom modifier, and my wisdom was my lowest stat, so I only actually had 1 Deadeye point, I think, in my original build, which meant I was very limited in what I could actually do. I had to instantly kill someone to get that Deadeye point back to be able to do anything with my uniqueness of my class. This was another one where after playing a few sessions, I found this a little bit restrictive, had another conversation with Phil and said, hey, do you mind if I rejig my stats a little bit? And upon leveling up to level 3, let us all sort of min-max a little bit more. After skewing things around now, I actually have 3 Deadeye points and my new abilities. Upon leveling up to level 3, a gunslinger gets access to a wide array of things that they can spend Deadeye points on. There's loads of them. A bunch of them are on screen right now. Once again, whoever made this graphic, I don't have it in my face right now, but it's on the screen. You're a legend. I was only allowed to pick 4 out of, the 20 options that I had. My first one was Violent Shot. This is one that Daisuke has in Dimension 20. It's basically just, I can do more damage, which is great. And I risk misfiring and I risk my own sort of weapons condition more, but I can do additional damage, which is wonderful. Another one I have is Devil Shot. On hitting something with a firearm, I can basically force a group of enemies to all make wisdom saving throws. If they fail, they're afraid of me, which makes sense for Richie. Because as I played him throughout the time, keeping in mind he is absolutely insane, played him very intimidatingly, very wildly aggressive, and was very prone to bouts of violence because he's just a wacky guy. And as a new player to D&D, I had to go all murder hobo. I simply had to. You can't stop me, please. Another one on that track is I can't remember the exact name of it. It's an intimidating shot. Essentially, I can spend a Deadeye point to get an advantage on an intimidate check. And if I succeed in that, I get the Deadeye point back. It's nice to have something that helps in roleplay. I think it's just a really fun ability. And as someone, my intimidation stat isn't actually super high because my charisma isn't crazy. I'm proficient in it, so I'm +3. But having that Deadeye point system where I can spend to get an additional one is really, really helpful. And generally, Phil, a very generous man, a lovely DM, has multiple times given me advantage on my intimidate checks already because I'm so fucking terrifying. One of the ones that I had really fun. We are clearing out this sort of house with these boys called the Red Brands or the Red Boys. They change their name all the time. Nightmare. One of the things that I think we found very instantly was that we're very easily sidetracked as a party. We had a job. We went to this town. One guy wearing a red jacket like called us a prick. And then we killed him and then all of his friends. Yeah. We murdered all of them, found Shiri Nodu, who is this sort of dark elf who was working with them, but had been captured and was going to be trafficked into slavery. It's bad stuff. I didn't trust her at all. She seemed a bit shady. Obviously, she worked for them. So we were going to let her out and have her kind of help us out, try and clear the rest of this camp. But she, kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. So I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to intimidate her. I'm going to scare her into not betraying us because I'm fucking crazy. So at this point, she'd seen us really clear out a room. Colin had murdered several people. Generally in our thing, it's a bit of a running joke, and it is true by the stats, by kill count, that Colin has more kills than me as Richie Ryder. He also does more damage generally. He's fucking crazy. So we storm in this room. Colin kills 2 people. I do a bunch of damage. We're really slaying things. Kronk does his thing and makes someone into mist. Crazy stuff. Jensen, our bard, is just having a good time. So I go up to the bars, and I'm basically saying to her, hey, if we're going to let you out here, you better not betray us. Something along the lines of, if I let you out of here, you wouldn't think about doing something wrong. You'd be praying to come back. And I start shaking the bars. You see, you can stay in here and you'd be mighty safe. I can't get in there. But you know who can. And then very slowly Colin walks through the bars and just stares at her and just goes, meh. And I'm like, yeah. You tell him, Colin. God, doing that in isolation outside of the role-playing room feels very cringe. But, be cringe, be free. This is Dungeons & Dragons we're talking about. We're all losers. That's just one example of sort of Richie's intense attempts to intimidate anyone around him. My last one, which I think is probably the coolest one, is called Quick Shot, which means as soon as we're going into combat, before anything happens, before initiative, as long as we're not surprised, I can take a shot before it begins. Which also allows me to spend Deadeye points as well in that. So I spend a Deadeye point to be able to act before combat. Bang, take a shot. And then I can also, if I hit, spend a bunch more Deadeye points. So there's been like multiple combats now where we just begin and I just go, oh, they're dead. Or hit them in the leg, they can't move. It's so useful and so sick. To the point where after the last session, we fucked up an owlbear. My friend Phil, the wonderful DM, was like, I might try and surprise you guys more. Which is great. But yeah, our campaign's going really, really well. We're playing the Lost Mines of Fandrandor, but in this, I think that's how you pronounce it, I don't fucking know. But in the sort of different world. I mentioned Adventure earlier. We're in like a semi-modern world inspired by Dimension 20's Fantasy High. So like crystals are like phones. When I ran our Christmas one-shot, it was in Phil's world, but I took over so he could be a player for this session. It was set in this world. They were all Adventure people. One of my favorite jokes was they were basically being taken. They're like the job that we had hired before was like really far out of town, like multiple days travel, and it said on the job advert delivery included, meaning they will deliver you to and from the job, which I just think is good fun. It's been really, really great. I think that the reason I wanted to talk about this is, one, just because I like talking about my interests, but the main reason I want to talk about this was because I think that it's a good example of how cooperative Dungeons & Dragons can be, and how much your character can develop. I think when you talk to people about playing D&D and they're thinking about their character, people can sometimes get a little bit nervous where they're like, oh my god, like, what if I make them and I don't like them, or I want to change, and then people might be a bit weird about it. I'm stuck in set in stone, which isn't the case. You can really change on a fly. Like Richie Ryder from his original build to where he is now, the character is fundamentally the same. There's some minor changes here or there to kind of fit him into the world. For example, the first time we made a history check in our campaign, I rolled a nat 20 and just knew what this thing was, despite the fact that Richie's only been in this world for like 2 years. So now I permanently have disadvantage on all history checks, which is fair. I just think it's funny. But the point is, the characters change quite a lot over this time, and I think that that level of like cooperative storytelling and communication with Phil the DM, make sure that the homebrew we were doing wasn't super overpowered, to make sure that, the changes with Colin don't get game breaking and that it's balanced and we're all having a good time. And I just thought it was a really interesting story of how, a character, despite being the same character overall, changed so significantly in gameplay and became so much more fun and so much more exciting. And I think is part of the reason why, I fall in love with Dungeons & Dragons so much, is just that element of how much, your character can change over time, and that level of cooperation, because, we were all pretty new. We were all very new to Dungeons & Dragons. You're not going to nail it the first time, you know what I mean? You're going to make a character that's a bit underpowered or isn't really clicking in the way that you want it to. It doesn't get to do the things that you want them to do. And hey, never be afraid. Ask the DM, have a chat about it, see what you guys can work up, and have a good time. That's what it's all about, guys. It's about having a good time. That's basically it. If you've got any questions about Richie Ryder, you want to hear more about the character, you want to hear some of the fun tales, or the fun stories of me intimidating people, he talks like this and he's got a gun. Oh yeah. My problem is I can't maintain his accent. It changes every week, I feel like, which is fine. If you want to hear more, let me know down below. If you want some more like role-playing content, if you want some Call of Cthulhu content, please tell me if anyone's interested. I've been a big fan of Call of Cthulhu for a long time. I've always wanted to do like some video essays or some explainers or some advice things for Call of Cthulhu, because I know that a lot of people want to play it but aren't really sure how. And it's one of those games where, kind of like D&D, there's like millions of rules, but it's not very complicated. I actually found D&D more complicated than Call of Cthulhu. I think overall Call of Cthulhu is a pretty simple game, unless you try and fire a Tommy gun. Then it's a fucking nightmare. Don't do that. If you hand me a pre-generated scenario and there's a Tommy gun in the story, you know what? It's a shotgun now. Fuck you. I don't want to roll 50 dice to see how dead everyone is. They're dead. It's a Tommy gun. But yeah, if you want some more kind of stuff like that, let me know down below. I'd be really keen on making it. This has been really, really fun. I had this video idea ages ago, to the point where in the original script, I think I said 6 months ago, and I think it's been over a year at this point, which is great. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Other updates. I'm bald. What do we think? I think I'm looking pretty smooth. Well, I guess literally smooth. Yeah, I think that's everything I want to say. Cheers, guys. Bye. Unlike most of my videos, I'm not drinking right now. It's 10 a.m. on a Sunday. I'm crazy. Also, I'm bald now. Don't worry about it. I said don't worry about it. I can see in the screen that you're worrying about it right now, and I told you not to. So I'm a little bit confused on what's happened here. Yeah. Love it. All right, what's next?